we should be able to get a PDF reprint of that or some kind of reprint and be able to make it available on the occultations.org website for everyone to download and read.
Okay.
I think we need to go on to the next speaker. And thank you, Joan, for a fine presentation and for sharing your many thoughts on the subject of outreach. Our next speaker is Kevin Green. Kevin received his PhD at the University of Utah in high energy astrophysics, working on the highest energy cosmic rays. After stints at the University of Michigan and the University of Chicago, he transitioned to the energy sector where he worked on energy supply and demand models. He is currently teaching physics full-time at the University of New Haven and observes mainly in his hometown of Westport, Connecticut. And Kevin wishes to speak to us with two talks, firstly about the possible Adelheid Moonlet, and secondly about diagnosing asteroidal occultation, stellar multiplicity by asteroidal occultations. So take it away, Kevin.
Thanks, Dave. It says I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. What do I have to do here?
Oh, hi, Kevin. Let me ask you, are you talking about a video or a PowerPoint?
It's a PowerPoint.
Oh, you should be able to do that. So let me make sure that you can. 1 second. You should be able to share your screen as opposed to start broadcasting.
Oh, okay.
Video.
Let me just try that.
Yeah, that's what. That's
right, you see that?
Yes.
Beautiful.
There you go.
I see it.
That's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. So, thanks, David, for the introduction. Let's see. I'm used to PowerPoint, but not in the 365 form. But so we'll see if we can get this to work. All right. So this is about the Adelheid potential satellite that was detected about a year ago now. And I've been looking for some upcoming confirmation opportunities. And Rick Bria, I'm very interested in what you just said about having telescopes around. I think we have an opportunity here. Rick's just down the street from me in Westport, but let me just make a plug. This is the Westport Astronomical Society site. It's town-owned land. This is an old Nike missile radar observatory that was looking for Soviet bombers coming in to drop nuclear bombs on Bridgeport, and lasted 3 years, and then the ICBMs were made, and this whole technology is obsolete. We have a 14-inch up in the dome up top there. We have a 25-inch here. I'm trying very hard to get them to upgrade this. It's basically 90s technology in terms of the slewing, and nobody wants to spend any money on it. I just might have to give a grant to do that. Here's our website. So we've also recently, and not so recently, but a couple of years back, we received the observatory donation, which we will be automating on our site. It got held up via COVID, but looks like that's going forward. It's 14-inch scope that should be available for basically robotic or remote access. Looking forward to that. A lot of people looking forward to that. Biggest thing they do is astrophotography. This is Franco Fella does solar imaging. Typical picture by him. A lot of effort in this society to do astrophotography. Huge amount of interest. And then whenever I talk about occultations, it's always crickets, and I'm trying to get over that, but not quite sure how to do that. Anyway, I'm hoping that some upcoming opportunities to maybe detect again this moon would be will help. So anyway, this was we saw this yesterday. This is this was the path of Adelheid shadow, and Paul Malley was down here, and we were up here. This is my light curve as the main body. About 44 seconds later came the moonlet right there, and greater or equal to 8 kilometers. You know, maybe it does this, but Paul's chord basically says, well, it isn't going over this way, so that's not going to happen. But so that was that observation. And given that, is there something more we can do? This was the orientation. This is from the ISOM website, the interactive, I forget what ISOM stands for. It's in Poland. It's basically the light curve model for the asteroid. The period is very well known, 6.32 hours long in terms of how long this rotates. This was the orientation at the time of the occultation in August last year. And notice that there's no variation in the light curve at that time. We are basically, it's almost, not quite, you can see the axis poke its head out down there just for a second, but we're almost looking at this thing edge on as this thing rotates around, or from top down, like from North Pole view, almost a North Pole view as that rotates during that particular observation. Now, if we were to just do some quick numbers here, is that the one we want? Yes. So let's assume it's 8 kilometers and its orbit is at about 530 kilometers radius. That would assume that orbit is circular as opposed to elliptical. So this is about 530 kilometers is what it looks like it would be. The probability of detecting this thing was about 1 in 400. That's an 8 kilometer swath out of a 2 pi r circle. So, this was all pure serendipity. I got lucky. The magnitude difference, if we assume that's going to go as the surface area, roughly. And so if we assume 8 kilometer diameter, that should be diameter. And 125 kilometer diameter for Adelheid. And that's about a difference in the intensity of the light of about, we'll call it 250. That's about a magnitude difference of 6. So it's not surprising that this wasn't seen. If we were to assume that instead of 8 kilometers, it was 40 kilometers in diameter, you'd have a magnitude of about 2.5. This is beyond what I would think is an upper limit on the larger size, or the upper limit on what the size of that moon is. It's Adelheid's 3 astronomical units out. That's its rotation period. There's no mass estimate. So this is really why that moon is really important. It's kind of a big asteroid, 125 kilometers, but there is no mass estimate as yet. There have been some interferometry images of this thing, but nobody completes the analysis, and it makes you wonder exactly why that has happened. Anyway, if we assume that the density is about 2 grams per cubic centimeter, we take that diameter, we get about 3×10⁻¹8 kilograms, and we can plop that into Kepler's third law and assume then that the radius of orbit is 530 kilometers. We get roughly a 2-day orbital period on this guy. So that's well under the 6.3 hours rotational period. So this thing is going around 8 times before the moon orbits once at bare minimum. And let me just clear that screen. All right, so There have been some past observations of Adelheid, 15 total. And I don't know if you can see that. That's in the way or not. So 15 total. 5 of them have been with greater or 3 or greater number of chords. And these are the dates, 02, 12, 17, 19, 21. Our event is not included. There were only 2 hits on this thing. Not enough really to get a nice idea of what it looks like. Now, so I'm going to go through these a little bit, and we'll focus on this one just a tiny bit. Let me just make a comment here. The availability of light curves would be very beneficial in looking at past observations, particularly when you find something new like a possible moon. There are only a handful of posted light curves for these events, one of which is mine, and I don't remember uploading it, so maybe someone did it for me, or maybe I did upload it. I know I did try to upload one, and now that I've said this, and I want to encourage everyone to upload their light curves, I confess I have not done it yet. I intend to do it probably after the fall term, during the winter break.
Kevin, it was me who created the light curve in the archive for you.
Oh, thank you.
Dave Galt.
Yeah.
Okay. Invoice in the mail.
Thanks, Dave. So, okay, so I'm not quite senile yet. That's a good thing.
Good.
So, all right. Where are we going? Here we go. This is from 2021. Do you guys see this? The title blocked on this? I see it blocked on my screen. I think that just might be on my screen though. This is the 2021 occultation in Europe. The size of this thing's 122 by 97. The yellow is or the shaded is of course from the light curve data and the orientation expected at that time. And here are the 4 chords that are hard to see in this graph, but that agrees pretty darn well. If we look at the next one that came before, this is in 2019, also in Europe, about the same size, similar shape, similar situation. 3 misses here, which helps, I suppose. Nobody's so far claimed any other detection, but what I saw was pretty small. Here is one that's a little bigger. This is from Australia. This axis here is a little bit long at 146 versus the 114. You could maybe argue it comes in a little bit more. It's within the errors, I would say, of the other, but you have to include that. It could be a little larger than the 125 or 130 that you're seeing in the others. And then this is the one that's a little bit out, which is from 2012. And this was a US-Australia event. The yellow curve here is the fit that was used. It's a little bit elongated, 145 at 96. And if you go to the USA asteroid occultation website with the results and you go to 2012, it's a slightly different fit. This is actually a bigger number. This is what came out of Occult 4 when I reanalyzed the data. This is the predicted shape at that time. I think actually it was enlarged to fit this a little bit better. If you were to make it consistent in size with the others, you would get this fit that would come in like this. I apologize for not having that down. It'd fall a little short of this guy down here, Steve Kerr's observation down in Australia. I can't help but wonder if it is related to, and then finally, one more. In 2002, this was not Europe. This was USA. only a circular fit was done, 124 kilometer fit. Although you have to look at that, and you know, those 3 chords, I think, do pretty well on what the light curve says it should be at that time. Could probably come down just a little bit, but I think that's a reasonably good fit. So shape model conforms reasonably well. Trans-Pacific event in 2012 is slightly off. Now the data are generally consistent with a near equatorial orbit, but wilder orbits are not ruled out. And I want to point that out. You know, if you have something elongated and it's rotating, which is going to be rotating this way, the axis is going to be like this. And if you have something up here, what have you got? Well, you've got a torque on this guy. And, you know, you should either see something that is a little more tumbling in behavior than what we would see in this guy, if in fact that the asteroid's orbit is not along the equatorial. So here would be, here's the, let me do this over here. Let me do this right here. So if we have here's the asteroid moving about its axis like this. If you have the moon also in the equatorial plane, you don't get that kind of tumbling. You would get a nice linear, steady period. There might be a little bit of issue one way or the other. The other thing is you know, if it's like this, then there's a bit of there's always a torque, and if there's any type of damping at all, this thing will relax to the point where they are equatorial. That is at least the theory. And so I'm just going to assume an equatorial orbit, or I'm going to, how am I going to say it? I'm not going to assume it. I'm just going to think about what would happen if it was equatorial. This is again in the 2012 occultation. Note the reliability of this guy is a little bit off. This was, you know, this was, I can't say it was the Stone Ages, let's call it the Iron Age. It's pre-Gaia, so this was not known. This is WDS, I believe. There's no duplicate source tag from the Gaia data. I think that's from WDS. David, you can tell me if I'm wrong. And then this was the event. This was, there were 2 observations in the US and then 1 very low angle in Australia by Steve Kerr. And so I've looked at, or I asked these guys what their light curve looked like, because, you know, this is, could it be that the fit was not so good because of the duplicated source? Here's Bob Jones's light curve, and Paul's light curve looks just the same. I did not hear back from Steve Kerr. And this is exactly what you would expect from a single stellar object and, you know, a single asteroid. So there's no evidence in any of the data to support a moon. The only evidence would be the fact that this is off, and then that's kind of, well, okay, maybe Steve got the moon, chuckle. So that would put you at 40 kilometer upper limit. I really doubt it's that big, because it would almost certainly have been seen by another method if it had been that big. All right. So so what about the future? You know, the past is the past. Let's see if we can find one that's coming forward. And, you know, and I'm pretty sure I triple check this. Most of these events are in my neighborhood. So part of that is the fact that Adelheid is now, it's at notice the declination's at +10. And so, you know, the southern skies aren't going to see it as quite as much. It's more in the northern, a little bit more in the northern part these days. But this is the path for a September 24th occultation coming up in the future, 13th mag should be doable. It's a little low. I think it was at 20 degrees at my location. So, but this is one upcoming event. If we look at, again, what is the orientation of the asteroid at this point? And during I just love ISOM now that I found this thing. I thank George Viscomi for putting this on, getting me onto it. But so here is right here on the plot on the right at the 0 time in the phase, this is the time of the event. So we're going to be looking not down the axis of rotation, but perpendicular to it through one of the other axes. And then as you know, this is 2.5 hours later up here, and so on in the 6.3 hour period. So we're going to be looking at this thing edge on. Now, and it's an if, but if the moon is equatorial, well, then we would expect something along this line. One's behind the asteroid, one's in front of the asteroid. And so if we go here, so what do we expect? We expect something that's smaller than the actual shadow path that's been drawn, because that's drawn at the average diameter of 124, and it's going to be more like 100. And then you expect something north-south that's going to look something like that. And that's probably about the extent of where it would be, is my guess. And so it may be off just a little bit in front or behind the rock during in its path, which is coming this way. The shadow's coming this way, but most likely the shadow of the moon's probably going to be somewhere out here. So a little help is kind of what I want to say. This is I'll talk more about the efforts here in a bit. So I'm going to have, actually, I've got I told a few students that I saw this thing and it needs confirmation, and I think I have a handful of New Haven students who are very interested in looking for this thing. So I think we're going to just set up primarily in this region, and I'm hoping that there are people along here that can help fill in there, and then I'm going to be spending some time trying to find more observers up here. And of course, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this year has been terrible. Of course, it's going to be cloudy this night. But anyway, I think I have a handful of observers, which I intend to train, but I don't have the telescopes. And if anyone can help me out there, that'd be great. Okay, so now here's the next one. This is October 4th, and for some reason the path did not quite get printed on this one. I didn't know why that is, but it's going to be right through here. And then again, if you look at where's the orientation, we're now mid. It's a little bit of more of a shadow. You're not at the lower part, but you still have this north-south rotation this way. And so that's most likely where the moon's going to be. It's going to be up something like this. And think about 500 kilometers. So this would be a great one. If we have any success in September, maybe that'll help us more. I don't know. This is, I don't know if I can actually travel to this guy. Just because of when it is during the week. But if you're looking for, this I think would be a wonderful opportunity. The magnitude's also very low, mag 10. So this is, I think, the best bet in North America. There was one, I believe, in Spain. I couldn't find any down under. And then there's two more again, this is in up here in Maine. The one beautiful thing about this is if it is equatorial, that orbital radius, it overlaps very well with the path. So you have a higher probability of actually catching the moon either before or after the event. And so that would be the north-south orientation again. And notice during the one at Maine, you start out with the maximum, again, along the maximum axis here, you get the maximum size of this guy at the beginning. And then finally, this is in January of 24. Unfortunately, though, it is right at the twilight, and that would definitely be a great one. It's for twilight, I think that's probably a little too dim. But again, the thing would be there, and given the light curve, the expectation is that the if the orbit is near equatorial or near equatorial, it would be like that. So that's that point there. For it's off a little bit. You'd be there's a little bit of a east-west effect for that event. So I've put a call out to the other members again. You know, this outreaches, you want to call it, you know, even people who are really into astronomy, they just seem to stay away from occultations, but I'm just going to press hard, and I'm hoping I can get a few people. There's some good observers who I can get from the Westport Astronomical Society. I think I can get at least half a dozen students from New Haven who are very, you know, they're very enthusiastic, no experience, but I'm gonna work them hard on that. But we don't have enough telescopes. I'm making a call to other observatories in the area already. There's one that's up the road from us, about 20 kilometers in New Milford, Connecticut. It's north of Danbury, Connecticut, if you know where that is. It's about 20 kilometers away from us. I think that's about right. And again, it's the same thing that I think I'm getting from these guys, which is, hey, I'd love to help, don't know what we're doing. And usually gets dropped somehow. Starting next week, I'm going to be calling other universities, and I'm going to be focusing on New England, at least for the next month, to see if I can get more people in the New England area to help on at least the ones in this region, with the best one, of course, being not that one, but this one here, this east-west event. It's best, I think, in terms of getting people to work. It's kind of worst for the moon. The best one for the moon is unfortunately in the twilight, and so I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, so that's it. Now going just another couple comments. Are we missing satellite events? So you know, what do we have in terms of the total numbers? If you go to the Johnston webpage, who lists all known, or you know, he filters it a bit, but 495 asteroids with satellites. JPL has a slightly smaller number. I swear this number went up by a factor 2 in the last 2 or 3 months. It seemed like it was lower. We only have 36 possible in Occult 4, and it seems like, given that we have, I don't know if we should have more or not. It's a good question. Here is a point. I don't know exactly where the analysis is, if people said no or what, but you know, right after I saw the Adelheid event, me and someone who's been observing with me, Christine Gao, who unfortunately has now gone to grad school, and I think she's done, but which is too bad. There's another event. This is a smaller asteroid, Fridland, a month later than when I observed the Adelheid event. And here is its light curve. And this guy here, 2 things down, this is like a 4 standard deviation event. So I don't know, it's not on, the asteroid occultation site. The main event is, but this is not. I don't know if it's because we find this is too small or if it just hasn't gone through yet, but I know there are other events that are about that people have showed me. And so I just want to ask a question here, which is here at the bottom. Do we need to have a page or someplace where we can talk about not necessarily the best events, but some of these marginal events? This may not be detection of an asteroid moon, but it certainly is evidence for a moon. And I know there have been others, and I'm just curious if that is something that we should be paying more attention to. The other summary on the Adelheid here is, I think we have good evidence for a satellite, but confirmation is required. There are a couple of possible North American events and also a couple in Europe. I think they're fairly low though, and they're not in Northern Europe. The Adelheid shape from occultations are in reasonable agreement with the inverted light curve shape. There's some disagreements that exist, and so that's also going to be a focus of the couple in my area of Adelheid. I'm going to try and get many more chords so we can really get this down. And with that, I will stop this guy. And I'll keep, well, I can stop the share and take questions.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, is it? My comment is that, well, to anybody who's discovered or thinks they've discovered a moonlet or a satellite, and if it's gone through the rigors of review, you really have to create a CBET, a telegram, to start the process of documenting its existence. So both the discoveries that I've been involved with, Arecibo and 2002 YE25, both have CBETs, and the Arecibo discoveries now got a paper in the Minor Planet Bulletin, and if it wasn't for the paper, Palo Tango wouldn't have taken a dive into the Gaia data to work out its period. So, and unless you do the paper and the CBET, the information won't get out to the wider astronomy community. It's all well and good to have the data in a cult, but it's it's in a cult. It's not many people get free and easy access to that.
So the question, thanks for that, Dave. The question I would have is, at what point do you do it? With Arecibo, you had a couple of chords, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
I have one chord and there's a miss right next by to it, and then that's it. Yeah. And so I think we need one more set before in my mind, it's detection as opposed to right now. Well, it's the evidence for.
Yeah, well, with Arecibo we had two chords, and then Richard and Kirk come along in 21 days later and got it again. So that's a discovery. But the YE25, we had two observers, Peter Nosworthy and I, and we each had separate events. So we created a CBET with a possible discovery, and that's and they accepted it. So you've got documentary evidence there, a light curve, and it's gone through the rigors of our You know, Dave Herold has looked at it. I've looked at it. David Dunham, whoever you want to do. And if we're convinced that it's, well, 99% certain, well, create a CBET. At least creating a CBET gives you official documentation that any other later discoveries won't trump yours. So, and then I think David Herold is going to talk about double star discoveries and the requirement for a paper for that. You know, the job's not done until the paperwork's done. So that's my take home message. So that's all. That's
Rick Bria, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, Kevin, obviously, I'll email you my phone number. We should talk about this. I'd be glad to help.
Yeah, great.
I think
Actually could work out well, Rick, you know, because we could match college students with the high school students. That could work out pretty well.
right, exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna need something like flashers or something. I don't know what we're gonna do for timing.
For timing, yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
And Tony
Excellent.
George?
There's
Yeah, I wanted to comment that I did some analysis for the 2012 event. And I've got all the original data. And this is one of the light curves that I got for Steve Kerr. And you can see that there's definitely a brightening. And I just looked at the video and there's definitely a brightening and then a drop again in the video. So I think that may have been overlooked the first time around. It certainly is not reflected in the occult 4 shape that you projected. So I could work with you offline to see if we can get
That's
more
interesting.
information. Yeah, I thought you'd be interested in it.
Yeah, that one's interesting. All right.
Okay, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to go on to your next talk.